Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Walford Weekly.
Woohoo!
Yes, we are discussing a special episode this week.
Special episode.
Yes, a special episode aired on BBC One. It wasn't a spin-off. It wasn't part of Red Nose Day or Children in Need like they've done before.
Gosh, if it was, there'd be a devastating outcome. Yeah, an episode done in a different style for a different audience. Did it fall flat on its face, or should it be hoisted up the flagpole full of praise? What do you guys think? We'll be chatting about that later on the show.
It's very mixed reviews, isn't it?
Okay, right. So we know that Ben's going to be going the negative route with
No,
this.
I'm not.
So
You don't know what I'm doing.
So before we go any further, I'd like to let everyone know that there was a poll that we put on our Twitter, our Facebook, and our Instagram, and I asked for everyone's opinion on what they thought about the special episode that was aired on Monday. All those comments will be read out at the end of the show, so stay listening to hear if yours will be mentioned.
If your opinion is validated or not.
No, it's not if it's valid. if it fits in with the narrative of how I've written the opinions on my little cheat sheet.
Okay. So we had special. So there's not a load going on this week. But we had the special episode which was focused solely on Ben, so that's where we're going to start. Just so everyone knows, we'll be talking about the episodes that were aired on the 1st and the 2nd of June 2020.
Pinch and a punch, first day of the month, Ben.
Well, it was when these episodes aired.
Oh, what does it mean then if I've done it in this now while we're recording?
You've got bad luck for 7 years.
7 years?
Yeah, probably. But yeah, we had the hearing episode where they were using muffled noises, but they weren't the same noises that we've heard from Ben in previous episodes. It was different noises.
It sounded like a radio tuner. Do you know what I mean? When you're trying to tune into a radio station in the old days before you had digital.
Don't know what radio station is.
Yeah, so on an analog tuning stick, and you kind of like turn the knob, and it kind of went from one station. Do you not think that's what it sounded like? So when
I can't remember.
That's how I would describe it. So when he heard things, it kind of and then he
it was like a bad phone signal.
Yeah,
like you could hear bits or words, and
which is
the words that he could hear appeared on screen in the EastEnders font,
which is how Ben would have heard it as well.
Well, okay, it's how Ben would have heard it.
Well, how do you know? You're not partial hearing.
Let me finish my sentence, and I'll inform you. You say they build this as like it's from Ben's perspective. Everything he hears, you hear, so you really know what it's like to have impaired hearing. I was like, okay, great. Day in the life of Ben, how he's going to handle it. If anyone wants to watch this episode, I would suggest watching it as like a short film on YouTube, about 10 minutes long. At about the 9 minutes 36 seconds mark is when you just turn it off. Because if you just watch that first 9 minutes, I was mildly impressed. Only mildly.
No, see, this is...
And then the last 15 minutes,
right?
It was just, it quickly went downhill until the duffs.
Right. So this is why our listeners are very lucky, because I'm now going to give a positive view on it, because I didn't think it was that bad throughout. Yes, the gangster stuff was a bit, we're doing this again, are we?
Right, so you can't say...
But,
okay.
You've had your view, Ben. Now it's time for mine. But... the bits at the beginning, especially, I thought were filmed very well. I thought it was filmed with tight shots, and the angles were much more different to what you're used to seeing.
Good use of the set.
It was a good use of the set, including the Albert Square itself.
So we're agreeing the same at the moment.
No.
Here we are.
Well, you never said that.
I did. I said I loved the first 9 minutes.
No, you said sort of. Yeah. I love the 5 to 9 minutes. Sort of.
Yeah, I love the direction, the
Right.
filming of it, the use of the set. Like when he walked through the market, it looked really real. I loved how you saw him wake up and he knocked over the glass and he did sign language with Lexi.
The market was really bustling, which was nice again. It was
Winston
nice to see
talked.
that. Well, it was nice to see it again. It was like the market's never looked that busy in such a long time again. And it felt like he was in an actual real environment.
But the things that don't make me 100% love it is the Hollyoaks subtitles.
I mean, I wouldn't have minded the subtitles if they hadn't used the EastEnders font.
What about them floating next to the person and like appearing?
I didn't mind that so much either. I think that was more for, because if you watch EastEnders, I don't know how often a viewer of EastEnders would watch a subtitled film, say for instance, and sometimes you can miss action of a film if your eyes are always drawn to the bottom of the screen where a subtitle box would be at the bottom.
That's true. You don't want to miss the action on that heist.
You really don't. But so I'm not calling the viewers of EastEnders as people who can't read very quickly. I don't want to
two things at once,
or can't do two things at once. I'm sure they can tap their head and rub their stomach at the same time.
That is what EastEnders producers do nowadays.
But are they dumbing? Well, they're dumbing it down.
Yeah.
They're spoon feeding the audience. The only problem I had was that they used that EastEnders font because as soon as the first line came out and the EastEnders font was used, I immediately knew I was watching an episode of EastEnders.
And it looked like the thing they put on Instagram or Twitter where they put a quote in EastEnders font on like a screen grab of the show, and that's what it looked like.
So it's pandering to almost like a social media generation.
It was just, it was silly. It cheapened it loads, and especially when they were doing this filmic look, and then you had this like text over it. I would have preferred it just to be subtitles at the bottom the whole way. And the other thing where I was trying to talk about earlier, where I said what I didn't like, is that they said it was like, you'll be in Ben's head and whatever you hear through the whole episode is only what he hears. But then they went and used like ambient music and noises, and it's like, well, that takes away the whole point of what they were purposely trying to do.
Yeah,
like you heard drone effects and like there was music, and it was just silly. And then then you have to sit there and hear every other word while it appears on screen.
They also kind of came out of what Ben could hear as well. When people were having a conversation which didn't involve him, which again was that seemed to cheapen it a little bit and kind of pull it out of the action.
It was. I mean, I would have just much preferred it if it stayed on the square and we just followed Ben from when he woke up, day in the square, to when he went to sleep. But the fact they did this stupid heist in between it, and also dropping that Lola and Peter storyline in.
Okay, so the
Lola, so over the top.
So the Lola and Peter storyline was almost put in there just to pad out the episode, which was already which already was a shorter episode. It was only 25 minutes long, which was a really strange development when we discovered it. So the episode actually went on late to air in the UK, but still fitted into its proper time slot, which is strange. So the fact they had to pad out the episode using Peter and Lola's story seemed odd, because it didn't seem to be there didn't seem to be a reason for why Ben would be angry, or so you thought anyway.
Well, just the amount of anger that he had, and it was just like watching like an online, like a free online film or something, or it was like a spin-off that BBC would put on iPlayer,
right?
Because it was so heightened, that Lola and Ben argument, but it just sort of came out of nowhere, and then the next episode it disappeared as well, and Ben was really angry that Lola had slept with Peter, but him and Callum got together through an affair, and I don't know, it's just all a bit...
That's true, but I don't think Lola and Peter are ever going to be getting together through an affair. I mean, it's...
That's not for Ben to judge.
Well, of course not, but what my point is that for me, there was some reasoning behind... You've had a lot of the airtime here, Ben, saying how much is negative, so I'm going to give my time now, saying what I think. I think that there was some purpose to Ben's thoughts about being upset about Lola and Peter being together. First of all, Jay is his best friend, and so he doesn't want Jay to be hurt again. And he then discovered through the episode, which, okay, you could argue was deliberately planted in it, so there'd be some purpose for him to be angry at Peter. But he found out that Lola had had an abortion, and Jay blamed Ben for it, because Lola had blamed Ben for the reason why she had the abortion too. Mm-hmm. And so Ben then instantly thought that the affair that Lola and Peter had been going on for much longer than he had thought. He didn't know that it had only happened one night. And as much as Lola wanted to explain that it had only been one night, Ben wouldn't give her the opportunity to reveal that. So I think this then caused that, plus his deafness that he wasn't coping with very well at all anyway. The fact that his dad had also rejected him from doing the job, which had made him feel unwanted, and again pulled the relationship between him and his dad apart. From the bridge that they had built had now been thrown into destruction once again. I think all these things adding up, then him drinking in the bar kind of made sense that he would then have this kind of heightened and ridiculous reaction to the relationship with Lola and Peter. So I don't
have a problem with all of that. It's just that the pacing of it is so... They just crammed it into the first 10 minutes of this episode. And that thing with Jay and Peter and Lola happened a few weeks ago, and they focused 2 episodes on it, and then they dropped Jay and Lola off the face of the earth like they always do. And then it pops up on this special episode now. It's like, it's impossible for you to care. And like how he dragged her out of work and was really abusive to her, and Denise was just like, oh no, don't go. And then just let her go. And there's no follow-up to it in the next episode. Lola was just sitting there with Billy talking to Sharon, and it was just...
That made no
weird.
sense. That made no sense, the fact that like there was no follow-up on the Tuesday episode to anything that happened, other than Phil mentioned to Ben that he can't tell anything that had happened that night to Callum.
And that's what makes it feel so cheap. That's what makes it feel like it was a spin-off episode that if you want to watch it, you can, but if you miss it, it doesn't really matter.
But I think there was a build. I disagreed with you in this respect that, yes, it happened at quite a fast speed, but I think that was almost, again, a deliberate decision because Ben's frustrations have all come into that one bottleneck scenario that happened on that day, the point of view episode. So Ben has been frustrated about his hearing up to this point. He's been frustrated that Callum seems to be I think he's a bit torn with his relationship with Callum, that he wants to do good to his dad, but at the same time he wants to make sure that Callum isn't hurt or he doesn't like lying to Callum either. And I think that on top of seeing last week with Lola and Peter at the Vic when she kind of held his hand and he already suspected something, it all kind of came together and caused a crescendo of problems for Ben. And we know already that Ben's not one who copes well with problems. And so, with that mixed in with the alcohol that he downed, and then he as soon as he went into the heist, and don't get me wrong, the heist, when you actually saw the heist, that was by far what ruined the episode for me, because then it became gangster EastEnders, which a lot of people do enjoy and watch.
No, they don't. Everyone moans. All comments are moaning about gangster EastEnders.
I don't like gangster EastEnders either.
No one does, but they always do it.
There must be people
one of those
who enjoy
weird
it
things.
though, because they
the producers, the writers.
I suppose so. The writers and producers enjoy it. Is it then because it's an easy way out because you can just end a story with, and then this big thing happened and someone got shot at the end.
I mean, the way
that's how they seem to end the stories in this era of EastEnders.
In a warehouse.
It is though. Every story ends in a warehouse where someone gets potentially shot, and then it's forgotten for a bit, and then 3 months later another warehouse is used and revealed.
Yeah, it does. It felt like to me when I was watching this episode. And I laughed out loud at parts, which shouldn't happen.
Well, yes, I had to sit next to Ben throughout Monday's episode, and any kind of tension that could have been built up had been torn apart by Ben's little sarky remarks.
By the end,
I wish I was shot in my left ear so I didn't have to listen to you.
Well, that can be arranged. By the end of it, I just felt so meh, basically. And I thought, after I'd watched that, 25 minutes of that TV, I thought it felt like I'd gone to the cinema to watch a film and I'd stayed awake through the first part. I dozed off a bit in the middle and I suddenly woke up and I was at the end and I missed something in the middle when the heist started. That's what the episode felt like. It felt like there was no middle part. Like you had there's
no second act. There was only a first and a third, and then that was the end.
That's what I felt like. I felt like I dozed off, but I hadn't. And like the second he went into that warehouse and there was all these blue lights and
using his mobile phone torch.
Yeah, but all the lights were on in this weird place and all the doors were unlocked and it's like it's a warehouse, but they're stealing money, but you don't really. And
it was an awfully empty warehouse as well. You didn't really understand what was going
on
and to take
why
from the warehouse.
This money was there. Like I feel like I've missed part of this plan, and it wasn't because of the hearing episode and Ben's missed part of it. That wasn't it. Like Ben went into this weird lounge bar, and there was a dead body on the floor, and they all stood around, but they'd double crossed Phil, but they hadn't. Like why was Phil just standing there? But Phil had a head injury.
It was a weird. It was
really weird.
That lounge bar was there. The VIP lounge was there.
In this warehouse. Like, what is this warehouse? Is it like an Amazon warehouse?
It looked like a classroom display, the way they put VIP lounge on the wall as well. I mean, no, it can't.
And chalk drawings on the wall as well.
I mean, maybe it was a school they were stealing from. Was it the Panasar? Remember the Panasar warehouse? It had cable
Lola.
Television and a sofa in the middle of it. Maybe we're just out of touch.Maybe gangster warehouses now have a very comfortable area where people can just lounge.
Is that what it was? A gangster warehouse? Because like there was a guy on the floor who was he? Was he another gang trying to get this money?
Well, he didn't seem to be. I don't know. All you saw was his legs.
Yeah, and he said like dealt with him.
Yeah, it was.
Who is he?
I don't know. It was just odd. You expected his legs to almost curl up and.
I want to know. What do you think that warehouse sells or stocks?
I don't know.
Booze? There's a bar in it with a price on it.
Well, it could be. Maybe it's a nightclub, and the warehouse is like where like the dancing happens. And
what about the rest of the warehouse? Area. It was like an actual warehouse.
Well, there was lots of long corridors as well, but then there was no offices. Do you know what I mean? It was very odd.
It was all very unlocked.
It felt like a shell.
It's like they were going. This is a really hard job. Like we have to get in, out, 5 minutes. All the security's going to be there.
And all the doors were wide open.
And all the doors are open. The places where you get deliveries was wide open.
There was no cameras in there either.
So the van was full of money, but they were like taking the money into that van, and then Phil and thingy just drove off. It was really odd. So honestly, it just left me with more questions than answers. And afterwards, like, the whole point of that was to make everyone aware of what it's like to live as a deaf person. And 20 minutes of it was full of this man doing a warehouse heist.
I mean, that's the part that upset me the most. I suppose upset's a bit strong, but it was.
I actually felt depressed afterwards, thinking
I was
this is
never
not
depressed
EastEnders.
at any point.
That's why when it ended, I literally thought, this isn't EastEnders.
This is the antithesis of what you hated about EastEnders, wasn't it? You
It was. Every single thing I hate about modern EastEnders was in that episode, in one little package.
But yeah, so this is what got me down and upset me. The fact that they built up this episode as being a point of view episode of Ben and having to deal with living with this hearing problem and not accepting it, and his relationship with Callum in respect to it. We all knew it was building up to there being some kind of warehouse heist because the weeks coming to that episode, him and Phil were negotiating and sorting it out. And I mean, I had an ounce of hope that perhaps they weren't going to perhaps make it quite the emphasis, because I thought it would be more about the emphasis of the relationship between Ben and Phil and between him and Callum and him having
or just coping general day-to-day life.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. So he's having to deal with his relationship. He's having to deal with his hearing loss and how badly he's dealing with it. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a happy ending at the end of it. I don't really expect that at all from EastEnders. The fact that they used as a device that Ben had lost his hearing completely in his left ear by someone shooting a gun close to it really wound me up, because personally I would be a little bit offended that you could only show someone who's gradually losing their hearing by basically losing it completely, and then that would be the moment where they're like, oh, okay, I'm upset that I've lost my hearing completely, but it was technically his own fault for why that had happened, because he was told not to go to the warehouse by Phil, and yes, he was upset about it. This was an opportunity for there to be a genuine scene where they could have had Ben and Callum sat down and having a conversation and actually having Ben deal with it the correct way. And that's what I wanted this episode to be, not a flipping car chase after Ben and Phil run away after beating Danny and his goons up.
Yeah, but what, 6 of them all had guns, I think?
Yeah, and then grabbing money, and then the selfishness of Phil as well, with Phil saying,
not leaving without money.
I'm not leaving without money. So again, he's basically money, and to a lesser extent Sharon, and I mean a lesser extent Sharon, because all Phil thinks about is money, is more important to him than Ben in this grand scheme
with their
thing.
lives,
and escaping with their lives, or even just Ben escaping with his life. I know that Phil had helped Ben by gesturing beg, which was actually that was the one shining moment for me in that warehouse.
Linked from the beginning to the end,
and it showed that Phil's been learning. Phil's gaining learning,
and Lexi probably,
and we're learning with them, because we learned that hand command as well. That sign language as well. But the fact that then when they drive away and Phil's only concern for Ben was, "Are you all right?" And Ben was like, you know, you could see he's crying, and Phil just sat there laughing, rubbing pound notes on his blooming face.
Because Ben was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He's like, "Oh, good, money's most important."
Yeah, exactly. Now we got money.
I mean, we are overrunning a bit, but I mean, we've got the police to talk about. Which they were like, turn the lights off, and then they just drove away.
Yeah, because I couldn't believe it, and I had to rewatch this scene, because I said, oh, no, they must have just been driving past as the police were going to the warehouse. But no, the police were genuinely chasing them.
They were on their tail.
And how do you get rid of them? Oh, you just turn your lights off.
And turn left instead of right.
I mean, if it's that easy to get away from a cascade of police cars, what, there's 3 cars there, then we'd all be blooming robbing warehouses with bars which have VIP lounges in.
And you've also got the, I don't know, plot hole, I suppose. Like, they didn't kill Danny Hardcastle and his goons, or whatever you want to call them, the gang. But the next episode, Ben and Phil were just like, right, how should we spend our share then? What should we do? And it's like, what? If you've just done this big heist, one, you wouldn't be flashing that cash around straight away. You'd sit on it for a bit, because it's only just been reported as stolen. Unless
you're Cat, and then you find it on top of a wardrobe.
She's cleverer than... Yeah, she's cleverer. She kept it in that
well, she kept it under the mattress, didn't she, in the Slater house? Yeah, but she got found out. Phil soon found out.
But what's to stop Danny just turning up at Phil's house now?
Well, I'm guessing, but again, it's context that haven't been... I know we shouldn't need to have things filled into us, but just a passing line, or watching a news article on the television where they said Danny Hardcastle was arrested today for, you know. So I'm presuming
he's out of the picture.
Yeah, so I'm presuming Danny Hardcastle had been arrested, but Danny Hardcastle had deliberately wanted Phil to do the job with with him because he had planned to frame Phil. So I'm presuming we're meant to believe that Danny was the one who ended up getting into trouble because that was mentioned in the first episode.
They should even get like a phone call at the Mitchell house and it's him from the prison, like
but
threatening
that's my point.
him. Something like that.
A little scene.
And Sharon could pick it up and get worried.
Well, Callum could have... Well, when Jack mentions to Callum, because Callum spent the whole second episode trying to find out what Ben had been up to because he didn't believe that he'd been with Lexi, Jack shows him... an article on his mobile phone, an investigation Jack's looking into but isn't meant to talk about, so then shows Callum the article on his mobile phone, and he could have, on the article there could have been like a picture of Danny Hardcastle and it could have said arrested at the scene. A simple thing like that would have then explained why Danny hasn't turned up the next day. Yeah, he's like, where's my money? Where's my money? You know, or
got his mates, like his gang, to come up and get it. Like, there's all more questions
rather than answers had been appeared. But if just to finish on, well, unless you have more to say, but the first point of view episode for me was good. I enjoyed it, but mainly because of the way it was filmed. I loved the way it was filmed because it felt like I wasn't watching a soap. It felt like I was watching a drama. And I said that to you as well. I said it felt like there was more... It felt like a more higher budget drama than you would see. I know you said it looked like a daytime drama, but for me it didn't. And for me it felt like it was more staged and planned and just felt more authentic in the way it was filmed, the cinematography. The plot, though, the story, I think was ruined. Which
is quite important.
Which is important, which is probably 50% of the importance. They were going right. They were going down the right track, even with the Lola and Peter story. I was fine. I was on board with that. I was hooked. I took it. Bit of pinch of salt, fine by me. It's as soon as they went into the gangster story all over again, and you just thought, oh, rinse and repeat, and here we go again.
It's like if you had the Linda New Year's Eve episode, which was one they did recently, which was like a kind of episode like this, point of view from Linda. It's like if the second half of that episode went into the new when she shot Keanu with Martin. It's like if that was pieced together, it would have ruined the episode. So that's kind of what they did do to this Ben episode. Like the second half just completely ruined it.
Because we said that we liked the Christmas Eve episode because that was a good episode, and then it got spoiled because then we found out the continuation, the natural continuation of that story. The New Year's Eve or New Year's Day episode.
I can't remember.
Either way, when they found out what happened to Keanu, then it was a bit like
another blue lit warehouse. Basically, is the issues here. But I mean, Callum asked Ben outright, "Was that you at the thing?" And Ben was like, "No, how dare you? I was dancing with Lexi." Yeah,
he had a video of him and Lexi as well.
That's the old video, isn't it? When they were dancing like a few months ago, and then she dressed him up as in makeup afterwards. I think that's that video.
Oh, right.
It's the same jumper he was wearing.
I mean, PC Callum, the police officer who completed his training within 1 week.
Yeah, Detective
Sergeant Callum.
DCI Callum.
Yeah, he didn't think about perhaps looking at when that was taken, the time
he
stamp.
believes his boyfriends. Doesn't need to check dates. Doesn't need receipts.
But he doesn't believe his boyfriend because he went to Sharon and started asking questions to Sharon. He's like, how do you deal with men who you love but you know are a little bit tricksty, and you know you want to ask them what the truth is but they won't give you the truth.
I mean, that seems... Are we talking about that scene in this
they've rewritten
storyline?
Sharon.
That was awful. It was so bad. And the writer, can't remember his name. Was it Darren Little? It was one of Stephen Ashdown. Whoever wrote Tuesday's episode. Normally they're very good with Sharon, but that was just awful. Like at Christmas, Sharon confessed that she loved Dennis. Dennis was always the one. And then she goes to Callum, just ignore their bad side. Just ignore that. There's no love greater than a love from a Mitchell, so just ignore it. It's like, what? The whole reason she started her affair with Keanu was because she didn't like the things that Phil was doing. Yeah. And Keanu was this softer, more caring person, so...
Yeah, I wish
Awful.
I wish that there was more that could have been done between Sharon and Callum in that scene, because I think they're both actually very somewhat similar people. They both have
kind
people
of in a similar place, aren't they?
And they're in a similar place, but they also have siblings who get into trouble, or had siblings in Sharon's case, who get into trouble, but you learnt and dealt with it by just kind of letting it pass. So in Callum's case, you know, Stuart was always the troublemaker and his dad, but he just used to let it kind of not wash over him, but that's my brother, that's my dad, you just get on with it. And Sharon's case, obviously it was Den. There was a Den and Angie reference, which we always enjoy.
But
and
that
she was
felt a bit odd to me, because she said, oh, Angie taught me how to just ignore
it. She never did.
It's like, what?
No. She used to... I mean, Angie loved Sharon, but Sharon always loved her dad over Angie, regardless. And I think even to the very end, even though he knew everything, even when Sharon found out everything that Den had done...
she still stuck by him.
still stuck by him.
Yeah. And also, it would have been a good opportunity for Sharon to use her 30 years of knowledge on this square to be that Pat Butcher, Peggy Mitchell matriarch.
35 years, my friend.
Yes, but with the Mitchells. Don't question my dates. It would have been a good time for her to go into that more older matriarch role and like just give him some actual decent advice. You know, I've made all these mistakes, Callum. Here's my advice to you to not have these mistakes. But no, she was just like, just roll over and just ignore it.
Yeah.
So that's the worst advice ever.
And so patronising as well when she said, you know, you and I, we're just delicate flowers. It's like, Sharon, you are self-sabotaging yourself there. You are not a delicate flower.
I don't know
you
if
are
she's...
Sharon Watts. Stand up in your high heels, put your head up high, shoulders back, and tell the world that you're Sharon Bloomin' Watts.
Well, that's more insulting when the credits changed her name to Sharon Watts and then 2 episodes later she got it back with Phil. So that really rubs it in our face. But yeah, I mean, we're going to be talking about Sharon and Phil more next, but we're just going to go to a quick game and then we'll move on to them.
Oh yes, it's an exciting new game as well. So we're including a game this week. We seem to be intermittent with our games now, but that's more of a time issue than anything else because we seem to overrun every time we do this. But we're adding a game this week because we want to let you guys know that this coming Sunday, if you're listening to it as it's been released, this coming Sunday, which is the 7th of June, we are doing our 4th Queen Vic pub quiz. And this time, to celebrate Pride Month, it is the Prince Albert takeover.
Well, it's finally going to get some business, is it?
It
Prince
most
Albert?
Certainly is. It'll be all questions about the LGBTQ plus community that ever graced our screen on EastEnders in the past 35 years. So if you want to join us...
How gay.
Very gay. If you want to join us, find our YouTube channel just by simply searching Walford Weekly Podcast on YouTube and click to subscribe and ring the bell to get the notifications. We will be live at 5 p.m. UK time, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. I think that's right. I don't know the American system. If I'm wrong, I'm very sorry. But find all the details on our Twitter and our Instagram.
Well, what's my game?
Right, so your game is called...
Plugging your own stuff.
Well, you'll be there too. You're always there hanging around like a bad smell.
Nope.
You're our social corner. This week's game for Ben is called Walford Community Sent Her. Any guesses what the game could be about?
Sending women somewhere. I don't know.
Right, well, no, it's not.
Sent
It's
her.
not going to be misogynistic.
Sent her.
Sent. Well, let me explain to you. Basically, I've set up a new market stall and I'm selling exclusive fragrances that are being released by some of the characters on the square.
Oh, scent. I see.
There you go. Community Sent Her. So I'm going to describe what the fragrance is and you have to tell me whose fragrance it is. Who's releasing their own perfumes?
So this is a slight copy of my game that I came up with then.
What game's that?
It's got multiple names.
Made up game from
It's
Ben
got Leo's Love List or Cat Slater's Secret Santa.
No. That's when people are buying presents.
You have to guess what they are. Yeah, so it's the same game.
But you have to guess whose scent this is. Whose perfume is it?
Yeah, I know, but you have copied me.
Whose eau de toilette are you splashing on your neck this week?
Right, okay.
So here's the first one then. And don't forget to join in and let us know how you guys get on. First one. This smells of hairspray with tones of overcooked fish fingers, but contains no alcohol. Whose fragrance is that?
Linda's.
You're saying Linda Carter?
Yeah, because she burnt fish fingers when she was drunk. She doesn't drink now.
That's correct. It's
When he
Linda
went to the
Carter's
roof.
perfume. It's called Linda's... I don't know what it's called.
Luscious Linda.
Luscious Linda.
Mm-hmm.
Next one. So you got 1 out of 1
Or
so
Linda
far.
the Lush.
Linda could have her own soap bar in Lush. Number 2. Smells of queer and coffee with fading hints of embalming fluid.
Callum Highway.
That's correct. Can you guess why it's Callum? Obviously the smell of queer is obvious.
Smell queer, because that's what Ben said to him.
Mm-hmm.
He used to work in...
Before he became a DCI in the Walford Police.
in The Undertakers.
Yeah.
And he likes coffee.
Coffee policeman. They like coffee and donuts, don't they? I like stereotypes too. Doing very well. Let's see if you can get this scent. This dark fragrance has sweet tones.
By the way, Callum's perfume should be called Capture of Callum.
With the advert being black and white, and you just see him going shh.
Yeah, in his black and white suit.
Yeah, to the camera. Shh. Right, third fragrance. This dark fragrance has sweet tones and stenches of desperation.
Desperation?
This dark fragrance has sweet tones and stenches of desperation.
Everyone's desperate. Max, he's desperate.
No, dark fragrance is probably the biggest.
Someone evil. Grey? No, I don't
I think
know.
you're missing the clue there.
What, they're dark and desperate
Dark.
with sweet undertones?
Sweet undertones. Why would you smell sweet?
Honey.
No, I'm sorry, you've had too many guesses. This is Martin Martin Fowler's fragrance.
What?
Dark.
Oh, Dark
fragrance
Martin.
with
right.
sweet, because he sells fruit and veg.
No, he doesn't. Not anymore.
He used to. And stenches of desperation, because he got hung from a bridge and he was desperate over Christmas.
That's awful. That was a really bad one.
What would Martin's fragrance be? What would his eau de toilette be?
Masquerade of Martin.
Lovely. And the advert would be him in a masquerade ball coming down the long top.
Yeah, and he'll take his mask off and wink at the camera.
Yeah, lovely. Nice. Number 4. A fashionable bottle accompanied by lingering woody tones.
Whitney.
Correct. Can you guess why?
Because Woody Wood. And she sells clothes, apparently.
And her fragrance would be called Whole Again. Whitney's Whole Again.
Whole Whitney.
Whole Whitney.
Whole heart.
No, I don't think
Whitney's
you should call it
whole heart.
Whitney's Whole.
No.
Final one. You're doing all right. You got 3 of them. And you get to keep these bottles as well. So you can wear them whenever you like when you're going on a night out.
Good.
Yeah. Number 5. Final one. An acrid mess that offends with cheap, outdated, trashy scents and laden with ginger.
Max.
Yes, Max Branning. Can you guess why? Because all of them are horrible.
Out of date.
Yeah, because it's out of date. He offends everyone. He's cheap.
That could have been Mitch as well, apart from the ginger.
Mitch isn't ginger.
No, but he's out of date too. And out of touch.
So out of those 5 bottles, obviously you're getting them for free. But which one would you, if you were to have to purchase one, which one would you buy?
Linda's.
The
fishy one, the fish finger one.
Fish finger. You want to smell like a fish finger?
Yeah.
A burnt fish finger. And where would you wear it? Would you wear it on a date? Would you wear it on a birthday? No. Obviously.
In my cleavage.
What occasion?
Going to the Prince Albert quiz.
Lovely. Oh, which is on when? This Sunday at 5 p.m?
Yes, correct.
UK time. Lovely. So let us know how you got on with Walford Community Sent Her. And if you want to join in with us, don't forget to join our YouTube channel this Sunday for a live interactive quiz. Thanks for playing. Welcome back, everyone. Just to remind you that we will be reading out your comments of what you thought of Ben's POV episode on Monday.
Who, me?
Not just you,
Ben.
Ben
Mitchell.
We will be getting your POV, I'm sure, about what people have said, but that will be at the end of the show. So stay listening, and we may read out your comment too, and we'll be discussing it like big boys discuss things to make sure things get done properly.
Right, so we've got a few other storylines, not all about Ben this week, because we had the fake Karen exit,
which we were all expecting.
I know. Like, even all the news articles were like, shock exit for Karen. It's like literally every single person in the whole...
The Sun?
Ridiculous. Yeah, the scum.
Whoa!
They were all
How
doing
dare
it,
you.
and every single person knows that Karen wasn't leaving. And they didn't even... It just felt like a whole waste of airtime, this did, for me. Because you knew Karen wasn't leaving. Bernie didn't even bother turning up for this episode to say goodbye to her mum. We don't even know if Bernie was leaving with her.
But yeah...
Chantel didn't bother to turn up to say goodbye.
I know.
Chatton and Riley, one of them was there, but the other one wasn't. So it was all just a big fake out and just felt like pointless.
They missed a trick with Chatton and Riley, really. If they just had like they've just said it was one son, they could have done like what they did with the Olsen twins with that comedy sitcom in America and just had one play the character when the other one's resting. Then you could have had Chatton and Riley on
But
screen
they're not
all the
identical
time.
twins, so it doesn't work.
Aren't they?
No.
Okay, I don't know. They're on so little.
They've on more than Bernie.
Well, they are at the moment, but they've had a growth spurt. That's pretty much all I know about.
So
Chatton
is
and
Will
Riley.
as well. Will's as tall as
Will?
Lola.
I think he's been growing in the same pot as Peter Bill, to be honest with you.
He's the new Dennis.
He
Here we
really
are.
is.
So watch out next year, Will.
Yeah,
when,
I know.
When Honey's back for work full time, they'll kill him off. So Karen's leaving. She says to Sharon, maybe you want to say one last goodbye to our Caden. And Sharon's like, yeah. Do you notice Sharon's talking like a bit babyish this week? A bit coy.
They changed Sharon.
Yeah, doormat Sharon's back.
I know. Why have they done that?
No, it's
when
awful.
there was strong Sharon was fighting back. I mean, I loved Shianu because it brought back the Sharon we know and love. There's feisty Sharon, the sexual Sharon,
the smouldering Sharon.
Yeah, the Sharon who won't step down, will put up a fight if she needs to.
No, but Phil walks in and he goes, she doesn't want to see Caden. Do you?
Yeah.
No, Phil. Yeah, you sling your Karen.
He calls her a cretin.
I know. And he says,
the cretin area, are they?
Stinking up the square.
Yeah.
So go away, Phil. This is why we all hated you.
Why have they done this to Phil, though? Because obviously, they did it for 2 weeks where Phil was like this light,
they
sweet
do it every year.
guy. But they did it obviously to make us all feel a bit sorry for Phil.
Yeah,
and
they
it
do
wasn't
it.
really his fault.
We said that on the
sank.
podcast like 8 podcasts ago. We said, this nice Phil is here for 2 weeks to make us feel sympathy for him again. And then he'll turn into his caricature gangster again for a year. And then 3 months' time when something happens, they'll want us to feel sorry for Phil again. So they'll roll out his granddaughter Lexi and have him do something nice.
Make up beans on toast.
And that's exactly what's happened, so predictable.
Let's mark this moment. everyone who's listening, if in a year's time, get in touch and tell us, is Phil gone from doing a 180 once again this year?
Of course he will. They'll make him human again if they move into the Vic for a week or so. They'll be all family.
Right. So I want to talk about the Vic.
Oh, no. Not
yeah,
again.
I do. We're back on this.
Why?
Because we have to. Because it's a burning subject. It's burning. It's burning between my head.
Okay, well, you have 30 seconds and then we're moving on. Go.
Do you think Phil and Sharon are actually going to end up in the Vic?
I feel like I'm a prime minister. I'm getting asked the same question every day.
Yeah, and should you travel 450 miles to get to the Vic?
I don't know. I just don't care anymore. Who gets the Vic? So that's my answer. I don't care.
I just think that it's kind of everything about the heist was we're getting the money for the Vic. We're getting the money for the Vic.
And they got it.
And they got the money for the Vic. And even on Tuesday's episode, Will had found something online that could really, fit into the Vic when we kind of do it up.
I wouldn't be surprised if somehow Karen and Mitch end up in there. Because she's quit her job at the laundrette for her fake exit. She's packed up the house. Mitch has nothing in the house. So they are all ready just to move in.
For me, that's what I mean. For me, it doesn't feel like Phil and Sharon are going because they're stringing it along for such a time now. Normally, a takeover of the Vic is a 1 or 2 week scenario. Like literally 1 out, 1 in. It's quick as that. And I get that the Carters there's not a real good reason for them to leave particularly. Normally it's been a fire or there's been like some massive big
Tina's
story.
Drowned on a boat or something.
Yeah, exactly. And so they and they leave. And normally people who leave the Vic, it coincides with them leaving the soap. And that's not happening either. So I get that perhaps it's a bit more of a longer turnover. But it's been such a long time now. I don't believe that it's going to be Sharon and Phil who take
Maybe
over
no
the
one
Vic.
leaves. Maybe the Carters just stay and it will be a whole waste of time.
Well, I'm still hopeful, fingers crossed. I'm still hopeful, fingers crossed, that it's going to be a surprise reveal that this person and it's going to be an old cast character.
Well, you can keep thinking that, but we're moving on now.
Okay. But that was my 5. That was my, 30 seconds?
That was more than 30
I got
seconds.
more than my time, so thank you. It's no longer burning.
No. So what happened with this? Keegan told Karen he wanted to move with her. Didn't want to be around anymore. Wasn't even going to bother telling Tiff.
Yeah, I know, that was odd, wasn't it?
Made him, again, come across awfully. Like, he's meant to be this sympathetic character, but I don't know. I just think that was horrible that he's married to her.
I think Keegan is in such a hole at the moment, though, that he just can't get himself out of it. He's really in a pit of desperation, and like when Karen offered him some money to like do up the van, and he was like, "There's no point because as soon as I take one step outside, I'll get mugged, and it'll be my fault." And so he's in that position now that maybe he just thinks that there's no point trying to reason or save his relationship with Tiff, although he doesn't really want to. Maybe he feels like he's dragging Tiff down at the same time because of his situation, and he doesn't want to do that. He loves Tiff so much that he thinks that a clean break at this point would be the best thing.
I think, isn't he angry because she stood up to that guy? That's why he's angry with her, I think.
Well, you think I don't think he's angry with her.
I think it's brought up next. I don't know what I can say, but I think that's brought up next week.
Okay.
So I think that's the reason why he's angry with her, because she stood up to that guy.
Oh, right. See, I didn't get that. I got that he was basically...
I mean, each week the story changes.
That's true. It's like,
There's no continuity.
It's like a carnival ride, isn't it? But I got that he was basically in such a desperate situation that he just almost like... there's no point talking to Tiff anymore. There's no point staying. And so he asked his mum to go as well.
I know, but it's a bit unfair on her.
Tiff was devastated.
Yeah.
And I really... Again, brilliant actress. We've gushed about her on numerous occasions. But the way that she just broke down as well. And straight after she had told Denise that she loved Keegan and she would do anything to help him.
She wants to understand him.
And she just can't seem to do anything. She can't seem to do anything.
And Keegan keeps saying to her, "Oh, you can't talk to me. You don't know what if this is like. You can't relate to me." But then he's not speaking to her. So no one's speaking to each other. This is what's going to happen.
But that's how soaps work, isn't it? Secrets and lies. Secrets and lies.
But we did eventually, when Phil left Sharon alone because he wanted to go watch the football, which he would love. She popped out to Karen to see Caden.
Yeah.
In secret to deliver a teddy bear that Dennis had bought, but really she was there to see Caden.
It was one last goodbye, wasn't it?
It was, and that was enough to change her mind.
Yeah, I mean, she was tormented the whole time whether she really wanted Karen to go and to take Caden with her. The whole episode, as you said at the beginning, she was almost at the cusp at that point, but then
Phil put his thumb down.
I think it was such a shame also that we've already discussed the scene with her and Callum, and there was that bit at the bar where Denise, just agony Denise.
Yeah.
agony, Denise. She had a little chat with Sharon then as well, and
it was cut a bit short.
It was cut a bit short, but also Sharon seemed a bit angry that Denise was bringing it up, but almost as if she blames Denise that she had made that decision, because Denise was the one who obviously has given up a Mitchell baby.
Yeah, Raymond.
And she almost, I think she was a bit put out that Denise was basically almost talking her down again, saying like, it is the right decision. And Sharon felt a bit like, well, I don't like that you're telling me this is the right decision. And perhaps then that was the moment which kind of clicked to Sharon that actually I didn't make that decision. I think I was in a moment of grief talked into it by Denise.
Oh, do you think? Oh. No, I can't blame Denise.
Well, I think Denise needs to be... I mean, Denise at the moment has been so good at giving out advice. I think she needs a few knocks down to her character, just a little bit, just so you can see...
Too much advice, Denise.
Too much advice, which has been too good. Perhaps she needs to be knocked down a little bit, just so we can see that Denise is still a human and she can still make mistakes. And perhaps the advice that she gave to Sharon was a mistake on this occasion. But everyone else, she's been perfectly spot on, and I completely agree with everything Denise ever says.
But Sharon has said to Phil, no, Karen's allowed to stay in the square because I've said so. That's how important Sharon is. If Sharon says she wants you out of the square, you go. If you can stay, then you can stay.
Yeah,
so she really is the queen of Walford.
Yeah.
But Phil obviously looked a bit angry then because he thought, oh, this Keanu situation's back. I thought we'd put all that behind us. But I just want her to break up with Phil and just get rid of him.
I mean, I don't really know what Phil's problem is, because I think
it's not his son, is it?
Yeah, but I mean, he needs to look at it from perspective that he still blames himself for Dennis's death. So that's a black mark against him, and he's forgiven Sharon for the affair. And the offspring of that is obviously Keegan, or so we're led to believe at the moment, but we're all waiting for that DNA test to be seen to be wrong, and we find out it's actually Phil's kid.
I'm off.
But nah, mate. Nah, not for me.
No, it's not for me. I'll be off if that happens.
So, oh goodness me. So I just think that one wrong has cancelled out the other wrong, and so okay, I just think Keegan is just the product for Phil to deal. I think Phil should learn to deal with it. Quite honestly, I don't think Phil has the right to have a problem with it personally.
No,
and I don't think Sharon should also put Phil on this pedestal that he is so like the number one, the A1 thing, the thing that is the most she's waited her whole life to have.
Once Mitchell loves you, there's nothing better.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't feel right.
They should have cut to they like their flashbacks. They should have cut to him chucking her on the floor when she was pregnant.
Yeah,
nothing like love of a Mitchell.
Numerous other things. That
Get out! I'm going to kill you. So yes, it all felt very empty, but she's going to now take Keegan, and Karen is staying everyone, so we don't have to worry.
Well, so we think, but I think this is going to basically build for the next week of just fallouts and arguments and shouting in the Mitchell household. But I also just want to bring up how Mitch, on a completely different note, how Mitch was deliberately winding up Billy as well, because Mitch was going with Karen away with Keegan.
Was he?
Yep, Mitch, Bailey and Karen were going together, I think.
Oh.
Because Mitch made that passing comment when he said, well, I've nowhere for me to... Oh, no, unless he was talking about the flat and he was staying in the flat.
Maybe.
Oh, I'm confused now.
No one, that's why it was so obvious it wasn't happening, because they didn't spend any time explaining to us what was happening to anyone.
Yeah, what the logistics actually
was.
The
only thing they
what
explained was that she wasn't going to take the dog. No, she was going to take the dog.
She was taking Bronzer.
But he's going to miss weeing in the square.
Oh, that's right.
That's as much detail as we were allowed.
Oh, and she's left a job that she loves, which is at the laundrette.
Exactly.
A job that Pauline, Dot, all just used it to get a little bit of money, but for Karen, this was her career.
It was. But that leaves way for her to be landlady in a few months.
That's true. She's free. But yeah, Billy was getting wound up by Mitch, and so obviously the rivalry for Mitch to get Karen's love is continuing as well.
Yeah, no. Right, so the next storyline is our Ruby, who to me is the only one being written as a real character right now, which is why I think everyone is like suddenly loving her.
Yeah, she's gone right up on our estimations.
She's the only one who's been written as a real character. I think that is why.
But an interesting character as well.
And it's really refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely refreshing. And she's being written as a strong woman as well. Strong women characters work really well in EastEnders.
And she's taking Max down a peg, which is always just bonus points for all over the show.
That's a win-win. If you're going to get that ginger baked bean like basically poked out the way, then just go for it.
He's just so miserable. I don't know if Max is miserable or if the actor is miserable, but there's something when he's on screen which just feels like he hates. It's like he's stuck in a job he hates, but he's not being forced into this.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's weird how he's portraying Max is really odd.
Max has always had this charisma, this kind of ego and this confidence, and it's just, I mean, he has been battle beaten, hasn't he, to be fair, like
as a character,
as a character he's just been knocked, and where he's always seen himself as being someone who can, a bit of a Jack the Lad, I suppose, he can weave himself out of any situation, and loved by women, adored by men, you know, that kind of, he's always seen himself as a bit of a kind of that man. He's just been knocked so far now, and
I mean, Martin Fowler is sexier than him now, and more appealable.
Martin Fowler is also knocking him down too, as well as Ruby, and it's like it's almost like kicking a puppy, isn't it? It's like you're knocking a man that can't really go any further down, and he's now lost his half of Walford East, which we mustn't forget.
We know that Ian's not going to give that back to him. It's going to be some scummy move.
Absolutely. Yeah. So poor Max,
I'm glad. No, not poor Max.
But the thing is that he's now getting jealous of Ruby, because I think he now thinks that Ruby has been given everything to her on a plate. Where Max,
he said to Jack, like, "Oh, she's landed on her feet, hasn't she? All of a sudden." It's like, that's meant to be your girlfriend. Then the next scene, we see him being like, "I'm really glad you've done well for yourself." Yeah. But you're such a scum, Max, that actually I can't feel sorry for you.
Well, which also makes us hate Max and think him scum even more, because he's obviously envious of Ruby and is jealous of how Ruby's found a fortune. Okay, she had it landed on her lap, but she's canny. She's got 2 businesses. She's got her, what's it called, party planning business, presumably, and now she's got Ruby's, her nightclub. You know, mix them together, that's like a super job.
Yeah.
And Max has literally got nothing, and he's living basically on Ruby's wage, I suppose,
or off his brother Jack, kind of.
Yeah. And so I think his envy is going to be, perhaps now Ruby's broken up with him, because she had broken up with him this week.
Best breakup ever.
Fantastic.
Happened in 17 seconds, I saw someone say.
Yep, and it ended an episode as well.
Yeah.
Which almost ended an episode. Phil got the duff with his grumpy
that
face.
He stole from Sharon.
Yeah, which is disgraceful. But I think this could potentially be something that Ruby will regret, because I think Max will now go out of his way to make Ruby's life hell. So perhaps then this might introduce a relationship between Ruby and Rainey. R&R.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's
new
right.
Nightclub.
Yeah.
That'd be a really good name for a nightclub, that would.
That really would. The new Mitchell sisters.
But no, they wouldn't mix well, Ruby and
I think they would, though, for a greater enemy, which is basically
Max
Branning. So again, don't you think it's building a little bit to a story? I know I did this.
If you're going to say who
shot
killed Max.
Right, so there's Martin, there's Ruby, potentially, because he might...
Rainey Stewart.
I know I've said this on numerous different
Baby
characters.
Abby.
But I think a big storyline like this would work, and I've repeatedly said it, and I'm sorry, and that'll be the last time I mention it again. But I do think that a big storyline, and it would give an excuse to perhaps get rid of Max. Because you don't need the character to survive an attempted murder for it to continue, because you've got then the police investigation, which could then introduce...
End in a warehouse.
Which could end in a warehouse, of course. And they could then introduce Baby Annie, Detective Baby Annie.
Oh, yeah. Constable Annie.
Yep. Which could then make Punk Mary come back. And that's ultimately all I want. Running the bar, the Queen
Annie
Vic.
can befriend Callum.
Yeah, and Punk Mary runs the Queen Vic.
Oh, for God's sake.
Because it's been bought by Lofty as part of his
old mate.
pub chains. Remember, he runs a string of
Lofty.
pubs? He owns a string of pubs.
Yes, I know. I'm not talking about the Vic anymore.
But I'm just telling you, this is potential storylines. Any storyliners out there listening?
Nah.
I'll give it to you for free.
None of them are.
You have it. I'm just dishing them out.
I mean, there's also, speaking about Max getting revenge on Ruby, we have him. He's the one who keeps spotting Dotty and Vinny buying the capsules and dealing them in the club in front of Ruby and head of security Martin.
Yes.
Who works at 2 p.m, by the way. Why is head of security working during the day? Should he not be working in the evening?
He preferred the day hours.
Oh, okay, that's fine then.
Yeah. He likes to be at home when Sonia's doing the night
That's
shift.
when security is needed during the day at a nightclub.
At its height. That's when football
when they're selling tea and coffee in the club, which made me laugh. But is Max now going to use that as like a revenge, like report her to the police? Because Ruby keeps not reporting it, doesn't she? Twice.
She's done
now.
it on purpose because she says it's only a soft drug.
That's what I mean. But is Max going to now be like, dob her in or something?
But that's what I mean. So I think Max is going to like seek revenge against Ruby.
Easily he could just phone and say Ruby's has hired a head of security with no training. So maybe sort that out.
I mean, some training. He caught a child with a pineapple.
Oh, and he caught all those men.
Yeah, the football hooligans. That's what I'm saying. Football hooligans, 2:00, prime time for security. Who else would have dealt with it?
He grabbed them all with his one hand somehow. He grabbed 5 of them with one hand and got them all out, didn't he?
It's like he encompassed
Didn't even
them.
break a sweat.
He encompassed them. He's like, is it Mr. Incredible? One of the Fantastic Four that has like the rubber ability. He was able to do that and just stretch around them and push them all out up the stairs and gone.
Yeah. Also, this has nothing to do with any of these storylines, but Jean just walked past Ben on that episode, like all happy and normal.
Yeah, as if nothing had happened.
That was odd. Like last time we saw her, she was barricaded in the house and wouldn't let anyone in or out.
She still was talking to Daniel's clothes, laid on the bed.
So she was all right on that episode. It's like that point of view episode was literally just plucked. It could have landed anywhere, really.
It's funny you should say that, because it did feel like to me that they actually put that in a different position. I genuinely believe that was in a slightly... Because it didn't relate to anything before, and it didn't really relate to anything afterwards.
Well, the heist, it did.
The heist bit did, yes, you're right, but then they could have just... They could have just fitted them scenes anywhere, couldn't they?
Who knows what's going on?
I don't know.
It's a big mess. But they've said that it ends on... Series 1 of EastEnders ends on the 16th of June.
Yeah.
And it'll be off air. It will be the only soap going off air as well.
Coronation Street's carrying on. Hollyoaks is carrying on.
Yes. So that's a bit worrying. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully it comes back all blazes, firing.
We've said this before. It would be a nice opportunity for a bit... Don't forget what's happened before, but perhaps learn from people's views that there's some things that aren't working.
Background music.
And use it as a bit of a reset.
Background music. Highly not working.
I don't want to go on about background music. This background music for you is like my Queen Vic theory for me. All you do is go on about it. And I don't think it's that bad.
It is.
It's not that bad.
Yeah, it is.
It's not when done properly.
No, it never is.
But it is. It has been.
Once,
I always reference... Okay.
Once it's been used well when Mel's car crashed. No, not then.
I love that. I thought that was a good opportunity. That was use.
Okay, and maybe if they did kill Bex during suicide, when they did that with Bex, when the suicide thing, but she didn't kill herself, so it felt a bit like...
But they used it on a time-lapse, didn't they? They used it when she was taking the pills, and then you saw outside and there was a time-lapse.
Lisa was going...
Yeah, I'm really worried about Lisa. I'm really worried about Bex, and then they were like, no, come on, let's go to the pub. She's like, okay. Yeah.
I'm
sure she's fine. It's digestive.
There's occasions where it's worked, but there's more where it doesn't, so it needs to go.
It doesn't need to... I don't want it to go entirely. I like that they've started adding...
Yeah, but they can use it
hints of music
3 times a year.
Okay.
Not 3 times a week.
But my emphasis... Okay, the emphasis for me is that when they use it as a hint. So just... Not to emote you, but just to kind of feel the scene.
Yeah, but they're getting too happy with it now. They're just using it too much. Someone knocks on the door and you hear a sound effect.
What, of the door knocking?
No, of a...
Oh, I'm just talking about music.
I hate all of them.
Sound effects is a different conversation altogether.
No, they're all the same. They're all awful. Anyway, we're going to go on to people's comments now.
Finally, a lot of people are probably saying.
Yes, and we'll hear what everyone thinks.
You know me, I ain't one to gossip.
Okay, so as promised, we are now going to chat about what you guys had commented on our social media, our Twitter, our Facebook, and our Instagram about Monday's episode, the Ben Point of View episode.
Oh, just that episode, is it?
They're mainly comments about that. I basically put out on social media to give us your comments, and we had so many. So I have narrowed them down to just a few points from people here and there. And if I don't read yours out, I'm really sorry. But hopefully Ben and I can have a bit of a discussion about some of the things people have said. But before we go ahead, I also put a poll. Someone asked us to do a poll of the week.
Oh, gosh.
Can you remember them?
Going back a bit.
Remember them? We used to do polls of the week every week.
This time last year.
Yeah. Oh, goodness, don't start reminding people because they'll ask for them. So I dusted off my old poll of the week question box.
Right.
And basically asked people what they thought about Ben's POV episode. Whether it was great or whether... it was not for them. And over 400 people voted, or at least 400 votes, I should say, because they could be multiple accounts. Ben Mitchell,
true.
We are looking at you. And 78% says great, and 22% said no, not good.
Sure.
So a majority of people enjoyed it. But
of
not
those who voted.
Yeah.
I wouldn't listen to that result.
Fair enough. But let's hear some comments then. So starting with a positive. Matt Cherry at Matt19020 on Twitter says, I was probably hooked. Kudos to the showrunner and the writers for their creativity. The lack of stable audio also added to the tension at the end. Max Bowden really is a revelation and was more than capable for carrying out the drama. I mean, we should first of all say Max Bowden did pull it off. And Steve McFadden pulled it off too.
Especially his running.
Yes.
Nearly as good as Callum's running, but not quite.
Runs in the family. When he marries into the family, obviously. But yeah, so the performances, I have no problem with the performances at all.
No, even Lola. I didn't really understand their argument and why they were so heightened in that, dragging her into the archers. And I thought it was just ridiculous, but the acting was fine. I hate, from that moment when she cut that piece of hair and he dragged her out of the salon.
And what, Denise said nothing. Denise was, and then that was it. Again, that would have been nice to have a bit of a follow-up.
Yeah, with Denise giving advice to everyone. Why don't she say, "Are you okay, Lola? Ben dragged you out by your wrists. Just making sure you're okay."
And you could just have Lola going, yeah, I'm fine. And then just having a just lingering look into the mirror, knowing that she's in a bit of twabble.
But no, don't get continuity.
On our Facebook group, Kieran Smith says, why can't they show Ben and Callum adjusting to Ben's hearing loss in a more believable and organised way without more criminal stuff? Yes. I think we said that. I think we touched on that, didn't we?
They should have had Frankie be in the point of view episode as well, seeing she's like a deaf actress and the whole reason they brought her in was to consult on the show.
Yes, right. So Frankie, okay, I agree with you entirely. Why is Frankie being so underused? She's such... I'm hoping that there's more to her. There's more to her, but like
she was
this
in the
week,
Prince Albert.
She was in
bisexual?
One scene. Well, she was in one scene in the Prince Albert. And she just said, "If you don't want your boyfriend, throw him my way." And then Ben said, "Nah,
that's relatable.
Once you go Ben, you never go back." Lola might have something to say about that.
That's true. But you know, if they want it to be relatable, gangsters, or if you don't want your boyfriend Callum, I'll have him. I know which one's more relatable, more down to earth and true.
Yeah.
The gangster stuff.
The gangster, of course, it's the gangster. Yeah, it goes without saying.
I really need to get some blue light bulbs, actually.
We've all had troubles in warehouses. Who hasn't? Shrugged shoulders. At Ray Mitchell 101 said, I did feel like I was watching a Grand Theft Auto mission for a minute, but it was very interesting to see Ben's point of view for everything. Again, the way it was filmed, the way it was shot, I had no problem with it at all. Even the way it was shot in the warehouse, I had no problem with it.
No,
like the kind of
the content,
the film noir angles when you saw Ben running down the corridor and the blind panic. He didn't know he was being chased. He was now deaf. He was panicking because he wasn't keeping up with his dad. That was
I want to look at that map again, I think, to see if it
was nothing to do, honestly. I don't know where Phil got that map from. It was terrible.
Lexi gave it to him.
Yeah, Lexi just drew anything and just thought better of it. At Mr. DC Phillips said, so far removed from the foundations of the show, contrived and totally unsympathetic of the character. I just don't care.
That's
just
how
don't
I
care.
feel. It was the fact they tried to make you feel sympathetic for Ben when they showed him harassing Lola quite abusively, stealing money, beating up these men, robbing a warehouse. Like, is this money from someone who's nice or evil?
What, it doesn't matter?
Robin Hood? Yeah, but is it like a Robin Hood kind of thing?
It's stealing. Surely it's just a crime either way. I don't think...
I know, but it's just odd. Like, it's very hard to feel sympathy.
It's not like they're holding up like a carriage in the middle of the forest. Although that would I'd like to see. That'd be a change for the warehouse, wouldn't it?
To turn off your lights.
Why not? Cam Doe on our Instagram says, I had to pause when the gun went off because it felt like I had lost my hearing for that moment. This was the most anxiety-inducing episode I've seen in a long time. I mean, that's not necessarily a good thing. I mean, I've got enough anxiety over this whole situation outside of the soap. I don't really need more anxiety in my life.
I had to pause when they were all shooting at the back of the van as it was driving away because I was laughing so much.
Again, I wish someone shot a blooming gun in my ear. At Mac Elmo says, I don't like the character of Ben to begin with, so I kept rolling my eyes at the things he was doing. The acting was good, but it didn't feel like an episode from a soap. Well, see, I can see that in two ways. It didn't feel like an episode from a soap, and for me, that was one of the shining moments for me. I thought that was a good thing. But I think he meant it as in that it didn't feel like an episode of EastEnders. It felt quite removed from the...
It's like the boat week. Like, I loved the boat week, like 70% of it, but the Mitchell episode I hated.
Yeah.
So there's a running theme here. I guess.
Let's have a positive. At Ashley McDoug9 on Twitter says, seeing the small things we take for granted, like the shells of the fish stall jangling, Ben truly needed some therapy and I felt so much for him. Phil cares so little about that boy, it breaks my heart. I mean, yes, of course, Phil didn't care. All he cared about was the money.
But those were the good moments of the episodes, when he was walking through the market. But that was about 20 seconds of 25 minutes. Like, I would have much more preferred more of that. Like him going into Minute Mart and trying to order something or getting confused. Like, that's what I'd rather see, of how he's dealing with what's happening. Like, maybe they could have had the heist thing and him get shot and lose his hearing completely, and then show us a point of view episode from there where he's lying to people saying he's not fully deaf, but we know he is, and seeing how he's coping throughout the day.
Yeah,
and then again, the heist stuff wouldn't have been mixed in with the point of view stuff.
I mean, they could have done the heist stuff. It just didn't feel like it belonged in that episode.
Yeah,
that probably would have garnered a better opinion, maybe from you.
Maybe.
James Reed on our Facebook group said, "This is supposed to be a special episode. It's supposed to be out the ordinary for EastEnders, and it's supposed to feel a bit different.
It's supposed to be good."
In that respect, I think they did very well. The filmic quality was great. Everything that took place on the square was much stronger than everything that happened in the warehouse.
Yeah.
I loved the little glimpses of the regular characters and the muffled noise from the market too. I mean, again, I think James is shouting out what we've already said. We liked it up until the point of the warehouse.
Yeah, so all those people who voted they liked the episode on that poll.
Maybe we should have changed the question.
Did they like all the episode, or just the good bits of the episode and not the gangster stuff?
Get in touch, let us know. I'll give you details in a moment. Final comment on this though, because I thought this was a nice way to end. At TonyCare316.
I'll change that.
At TonyCare316 says on Twitter, "Fantastic emotional episode. Having been through it myself, the fear, anger, frustration, loneliness and the rock bottom is truly relatable. My surgery was a success after being told I wouldn't be able to hear again, and even now I hear things I've never been able to before. Scary when you get a cold and it affects your ears and the fear starts coming back. The episode and Max Bowden were fantastic and deserves a huge credit." So this is a guy who's been in a similar situation and so he can relate to it, and he's saying that the way it was portrayed was, to him, right, it was perfect. So going all the way back to this episode today, our recording, you said, the sounds were a bit strange, but obviously that's something that people who have been in that situation
I didn't have a
can
problem with
relate
the
to.
sounds. I had a problem that the
gangster stuff.
No, I'm talking about sounds now, not gangsters.
Okay.
Is that we kept having background on ambient music in Ben's head.
Okay, fine.
Don't need that.
But
sound editor.
Right.
Delete that level of sound, please.
But as Tony Care has said, this is, for him, this was something he personally had a link to and a relation to. And so it was something he liked seeing on screen. I think for someone in that situation, it's nice to have something that people can then relate to and so become more understanding about the problem.
He didn't mention the gangsters though, did he?
He didn't. Would you just stop?
No.
Be nice to people.
I am being nice, but I want to know what he thinks about the gangsters.
Well, get back in. Tony, if you're listening, please get back in touch. And you can have a little chat with Ben.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to hear a couple of comments about Max and Ruby?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
As long as they're horrible about Max.
Of course they are. At Zubaida_ULA on Twitter says, "Bye Max. Hello Martin." Simples. At Rachel_B_R says, "I don't think Ruby's free just yet. Max will report her for the drug dealing and try to get one up on her."
Spiteful Max, sounds about right.
Sounds about right to me. And on our Facebook group, the final comment of the day, Rachel Richardson says, finally, those two had literally nothing in common, and even watching them kiss in the cafe made me cringe so hard."
Yeah, they were just ridiculous. 11 months they've been together, haven't they?
Yeah, and they had, like, when he said, "Oh, I'll come over a bottle of champagne," we both like, what are they going to do? Just sit there in silence and watch?
They're literally just two random characters put together.
Yeah.
And they have no anything in common.
It just didn't
at
work.
all.
Anyone who's got any comments, please do get in touch with us on our Twitter, which is at Walford Weekly, and you can get us on the same on our Instagram. You can also get in touch with us on our Facebook group. Just search Walford Weekly Podcast, click to join, and join the conversation. It's a really great group. We always say it every week, and we love everyone who joins in on that. Don't forget to find us on YouTube. New videos out every week, and the podcast is on there as well. I
recently took Sharon on holiday on YouTube, so look out for that.
Yeah, Ben's done a video, check it out. There's plenty of other videos on there as well.
Kim Fox is back.
She is, and she's got to bring the mosquito spray. If you want to find us on YouTube, you can just search Walford Weekly Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you get a notification, especially since this Sunday we're doing the live interactive quiz, and we've got the 3 older ones on there too, so you can brush up on your skills by playing them as well.
You've got to subscribe because they'll let you know that we're live, won't they?
100%. But we'll get also on Twitter and so forth, I'm sure. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please don't forget, if you liked the show, to rate us 5 stars and leave a comment as well. Every comment means the world to us, and also it helps us get seen by more people. Thank you again for joining us. As I say every week, stay safe, look after yourselves, take care, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Goodbye.